Hey guys, tonight we're sneaking through the creaky, candlelit corridors of a Western brothel. No, not the Hollywood kind with velvet sofas and dramatic jazz, but the real, historic brothel. Sticky floors, suspicious stew, and clientele who made your last company Christmas party look tame. So, before you get too comfortable, do me a favor and hit like and subscribe. But only if you actually enjoy what I do here. Leave a comment with where you're watching from and the time, because let's face it, if it's after 11 p.m. and you're still on YouTube, you've either got insomnia or children. Now, dim those lights. Maybe turn on a fan for some ambient white noise. Sprawl out on your bed. Or, if you're feeling historically accurate, try sleeping with one eye open. Let's get cozy, but, not brothel cozy. Just regular, safe, no surprise fees, cozy. But have you ever really wondered what life in a Western brothel was actually like? Was it all wine and lace? Or more like lukewarm ale and last week's linens? What did you eat when even the rats looked nervous? Did anyone ever wash the sheets? Did the staff get dental? What was the medieval customer service complaint process? Did you just shout? Or was there a suggestion box, possibly shaped like a bucket? How did you handle rowdy guests, suspicious stains, or a bard who just would not stop with his lute solo at 3 a.m? Well, tonight's your lucky night. Congratulations, you've just woken up in the middle of a bustling Western brothel. It's 1473. You have a mild headache, a mysterious bruise, and the lingering scent of someone else's perfume clinging to your only shirt. Good luck. You step through the crooked doorway and immediately realize this is not your average Airbnb. The air is thick with the smell of strong ale, stronger perfume, and the faint metallic scent of panic. Before you even sit down, someone, possibly named Maud, possibly named Kevin, asks if you're paying by the hour or by the half hour. Welcome to hospitality, 15th century style. You try to get your bearings. There's no check-in kiosk, no branded chocolates on your pillow, and definitely no little card that says, "Enjoy your stay." Instead, you're greeted by a rickety bench, a mysterious stain, and a chandelier that's one enthusiastic sneeze away from becoming a medieval hazard. There is a guest book, but it's just a wooden plank with a few carvings that might be names or might just be someone's attempt at tic-tac-toe. Ambiance is less boutique chic and more, has anyone ever cleaned this? Let's talk about the entrance fee. Unlike the modern hidden cleaning charge, the brothel's door fee is about as subtle as a punch in the nose. You're told, in no uncertain terms, that it's 1 penny if you just want to look around, 2 pennies if you're planning to stay for a drink, and 3 if you don't want Maud, Kevin to tell your mother you were here. Prices, of course, are negotiable, provided you're good at haggling, bribing, or just exceptionally lucky. There's a chalkboard above the bar listing the house specials, but the numbers change so often you get the feeling the real menu is just whatever we think you can afford. You're shown to a seat by someone who may or may not work here, but is definitely angling for a tip. The chair wobbles, the table lists slightly to the left, and the candles provide just enough light to notice that the wood floor is a patchwork of spilled drinks, ancient sawdust, and what might be centuries-old breadcrumbs. Music drifts from the far corner, a single lute, bravely fighting a losing battle against the sound of raucous laughter, and someone loudly losing at dice. Here, anonymity is both a promise and a lie. On the one hand, everyone pretends not to see you. On the other, Maud, Kevin writes your name on a scrap of parchment for security reasons. This list, you're told, is only for emergencies, like if the mayor shows up, or if there's a fire, or if someone tries to pay with a dead ferret again. Nobody looks surprised when someone stumbles in, trips over a dog, and shouts, "Put it on my tab." You quietly make a note never to start a tab. The decor is, let's say, eclectic. There's a tapestry with more holes than history, a few faded pillows, and a vase that has definitely seen better centuries. At one end of the room, a curtain separates the VIP area, which is just a slightly cleaner version of the same chaos, minus the dog. Every corner of the brothel tells a story. Most of them end with the words, "And that's why we don't keep chickens inside anymore." And then there's the etiquette. First rule, don't ask too many questions. Second rule, never touch anything with your bare hands if you can help it. Third rule, always know where your shoes are. The brothel's regulars eye you with a mixture of curiosity and mild suspicion. Are you a noble in disguise? A local? Someone who actually has money? Or just another dreamer hoping to pay in poetry? You quickly learn that the house expects you to settle your bill up front, in cash, coin, or, if you're especially desperate, potatoes. If you try to haggle, you're invited to take it up with the goose, which is never explained but sounds ominous. As your eyes adjust to the smoky candlelight, you realize the true genius of the brothel's welcome. It's impossible to relax, but equally impossible to leave. There's always a story happening, always a new disaster to witness. And as you fumble for your coin purse, you have one comforting thought. At least you don't have to worry about leaving a review. The only feedback form here is whether you come back tomorrow or run away and become a monk instead. Welcome to the brothel. Check-in is whenever, check-out is as soon as you regain your dignity. And don't forget to tip Maud, or Kevin, or both. They're probably watching. The madam glides in, rings on every finger, a look that says, "Try me," and an accounting system based mostly on memory, IOUs, and threats. She controls the keys, the money, and the gossip, and she will definitely notice if you break a chair, steal a towel, or accidentally set something on fire. Let's get one thing clear from the start. If the brothel is a ship, the madame is not just the captain, she's the entire navy, the admiral, and the ocean itself. Her hair is piled high in a style that's either cutting-edge fashion or the result of losing a bet, and her perfume enters the room a full 3 seconds before she does. The regulars know to clear a path. The newcomers less so, and they quickly learn why that's a mistake. Her gaze sweeps the room, weighing every guest like she's calculating the exact moment you'll run out of coins, patience, or both. She moves through the house with the sort of authority you wish you had at the family reunion. Her voice can drop to a whisper that chills the marrow, or rise to a shout that can silence even the most committed lute player. She knows everyone's secrets before you've even decided to have any, and she files them away for future use, because nothing says job security in the 15th century like strategic blackmail. Her accounting system? Impressive if you're not the one who owes her money. There are no ledgers or abacuses, just a frighteningly sharp memory and a habit of jotting down mysterious symbols on scraps of parchment that she later burns, reads, or feeds to the house goat, depending on how the day's going. If you ask her for your tab, she'll tell you to your face, down to the last halfpenny, what you owe, when you drank it, and who you spilled it on. Try arguing, and you'll suddenly owe twice as much. It's not just economics, it's performance art. But what really sets the madame apart is her ability to multitask. She's the hostess, bouncer, therapist, and, when the night goes sideways, amateur arson investigator. She can settle a bar brawl with a raised eyebrow and a well-placed shoe. If you think you can outsmart her, remember, she's seen every trick, dodged every excuse, and probably invented most of them. She once got a bishop to pay for his own excommunication party, and she'll tell you the story if you pay for another round. Of course, the madam doesn't just run the business. She runs the staff too. Woe to the new hire who forgets to curtsy, to wipe the tables, or to remove the chicken from the VIP room. She has a sixth sense for laziness, insubordination, and anyone sneaking a second helping of the house cheese. The workers respect her, fear her, and occasionally try to prank her, but she always gets the last laugh. She can recall the exact number of towels in the laundry and who borrowed which lace-up boots in 1439. Her rules are legendary. No fighting near the tapestries. No singing after the fourth ale, unless you're good. No clients in the kitchen, ever, and, most importantly, never mention her age. The last person who tried spent a week cleaning out the stables and reconsidering their life choices. She keeps a wooden spoon at her belt for disciplinary purposes, and yes, she's not afraid to use it. As for her reputation, the local authorities know her well. She's paid off the constable so many times that he sends her birthday cards. The local priest complains about her from the pulpit, then stops by for a quiet chat every Thursday night. She's the unofficial mayor of the street. If you want something done, you ask the madame. If you want it done right, you pay her extra. She's the one who keeps the peace, balances the books, and makes sure nobody ever leaves without settling their debts, financial, emotional, or otherwise. And through it all, she keeps the house running, the lights glowing, and the stories flowing. She's the keeper of the secrets, the enforcer of the rules, and, on rare, quiet nights, the first to toast to survival in a world that rarely rewards it. In short, if you want to last a night here, remember, you don't cross the madame. Not unless you're prepared to lose at a game you didn't even know you were playing. And if you're lucky, maybe, just maybe, she'll call you by your real name. That's when you know you've truly arrived. The workers of the brothel are a spectrum of personalities, witty, weary, and way better at self-defense than you'd expect. Some are here by choice, some by circumstance, but all are experts at spotting trouble, dodging lecherous nobles, and stretching a pint of ale until dawn. You quickly learn that everyone has a story. The barmaid, with the world's fastest glare, used to be a pickpocket before she discovered that pouring ale was a lot less risky than running from the night watch. The singer in the corner, voice like honey, elbows like steel, supposedly ran away from an unhappy engagement to a miller's son and never looked back. The big guy at the door, whose arms are roughly the circumference of tree trunks, he claims to have wrestled a bear. Whether or not the bear was sober at the time remains a point of debate. The staff is more than just employees. They're the house's immune system. They're alert to every flicker of drama, every whiff of a brewing fight, every coin purse suspiciously light at closing time. And they have their methods, some subtle, some spectacular. Watch as a flirtatious merchant is gently but firmly steered away from the good silver, with nothing more than a withering look and a perfectly timed sigh. Observe the silent code between the serving girls, a series of eyebrow twitches and head tilts that means, help, the bard is singing again. If there's a disaster looming, say a noble getting handsy, or someone accidentally breaking the same mug for the third time this week, the staff is on it before the rest of the room even notices. Each worker has their own survival toolkit. For some, it's a sharp tongue and a quicker wit. For others, it's the ability to disappear when the mood of the house sours, only to reappear triumphantly with another round of drinks. The most successful have mastered the ancient art of never making promises, only polite suggestions. Maybe the madame will see you now. Or perhaps you'd enjoy our famous pottage. Yes, it's supposed to look like that. Then there are the veterans, who have been here long enough to see 3 menu changes, 2 renovations, and at least 1 full-scale cheese-related incident. They've seen it all. The love-struck noble who tries to elope with a staff member every month, the disgraced knight who leaves IOUs written in rhyming couplets, and the peddler who once traded a sack of onions for an entire night's tab. These old hands have the wisdom of age and the cynicism of someone who's heard every excuse in the Western Hemisphere. Their advice? Don't trust a man who says he can juggle knives and never bet against the house cat in a staring contest. But underneath the sarcasm and survival skills, there's a camaraderie, an unspoken bond that comes from weathering life's storms together, night after night. If you slip and spill your drink, there's always someone to mop it up and slip you a knowing smile. If a guest tries something unpleasant, a colleague will appear at your elbow faster than you can say, "Not tonight." There's always time for a laugh in the back room, a shared story over cold stew, or a dance when the lute player finally finds the right key. Make no mistake, working in a brothel isn't glamorous. It's exhausting, occasionally humiliating, and often surreal. But for many, It's family, one that celebrates every triumph and collectively glares down every troublemaker. The staff share everything from fever remedies to fashion tips, gossip to guard duty, bad jokes to the last crust of bread at sunrise. Together, they turn chaos into routine, hardship into humor, and every rough night into a story worth retelling. So when you find yourself swept up in the brothel's wild, unpredictable current, spare a thought for the people who keep it afloat. They're survivors, comedians, amateur therapists, and, when it comes right down to it, absolutely essential. Without them, the brothel would be nothing but empty chairs, stale ale, and a very confused chicken. If you request room service, prepare for a pitcher of dubious ale, a plate of cheese that may or may not be cheese, and a stern warning not to sit on the wobbly stool. Pillows are an endangered species, and the only turn-down service involves someone literally turning down your request for a better room. You quickly realize the concept of room service in a Western brothel is really just service occasionally, and almost never in your room. If you want breakfast in bed, expect to share it with 3 flies, and, if you're very unlucky, the cat. The menu is simple: ale, bread, possibly an apple, and cheese that's achieved sentience. If you're lucky, your food arrives only mildly burnt and not accompanied by the chef's life story or an unsolicited horoscope. You tap politely on the door, only to have it swing open with a gust of cold air and the overwhelming aroma of stewed onions and questionable decisions. Your server is either an overworked staff member balancing a tray and a grudge, or the bouncer, who's delivering your meal because he lost a bet. Either way, service comes with a healthy dose of sarcasm and a strong suggestion to tip in coin, not advice. The room itself is best described as rustic. There's a bed of indeterminate age, sheets that have seen more drama than a monastery during Lent, and a view of the street that comes with a free serenade by the local drunks. The furniture is a collection of heroic survivors. The one-legged chair, the table that tilts like a ship in a storm, and a cupboard that once held secrets but now only holds moths. Should you request extra blankets, you'll receive something that may or may not have started life as a curtain. There's no do not disturb sign, just the threat of the madame checking on you if you make too much noise. If you require cleaning service, manage your expectations. The process involves sweeping the floor with a broom that has 3 twigs left and a prayer, while someone shakes out the bedding in the alley, scaring pigeons and any hopes you had for hygiene. Linens are rarely changed, except on feast days, or if someone accidentally sets them on fire. Again, the bathroom is, generously, a bucket, strategically hidden behind a curtain. For privacy, you can hum loudly and hope your neighbors are more polite than usual. If you need hot water, that's an extra fee and an extra hour, and even then, there's a 50-50 chance it'll arrive cold and slightly muddy. Turn-down service? Absolutely. Turn-downs are frequent and creative. Your requests for more comfortable bedding, a less lumpy mattress, or a window that closes are met with a smile that says, "You must be new here," and a story about the one time a baron demanded silk sheets and left at dawn with a rash and a broken nose. Midnight snacks are available, sort of. You can have bread, cheese, or house stew, which has been simmering since last Thursday, and contains at least one identifiable vegetable. Everything is served with a side of caution. If the ale tastes stronger than usual, it's either a sign of good luck or a sign you should stop drinking immediately. The house motto is, if you can't pronounce it, don't eat it. And yet, there's a peculiar charm to it all. The clatter of plates, the occasional burst of laughter from the hallway, and the knowledge that you're sharing in a tradition that's been around for centuries. The staff works with what they have, improvising amenities out of thin air and recycled linens, and every minor disaster becomes another story to swap over breakfast, assuming you survive the night without the cheese moving on its own. In the end, room service in a medieval brothel isn't about comfort or convenience. It's about endurance, luck, and a sense of humor. If you wake up with all your belongings, a full stomach, and only minor bruising from the wobbly stool, you've had a 5-star experience by 15th century standards. Besides, if you really want luxury, there's always the barn next door. Just don't ask about the turn-down service. Housekeeping in a brothel is less about cleaning and more about strategic rearrangement of linens and the occasional use of dried lavender to fight smells with stronger smells. If you drop something under the bed, just leave it there. That's where nightmares live. Forget everything you know about deep cleaning. In a Western brothel, cleanliness is more of an aspiration than a daily occurrence, a sort of wishful thinking, right up there with, "May my client pay in cash," or "Let it not rain through the roof tonight." The cleaning crew's motto? If it smells better than last week, it's an improvement. Daily routines are elaborate charades. The staff start the morning with a heroic sweep. Heroic in the sense that the broom is held together by equal parts hope and last year's twine. Sweepings are performed with gusto, mostly to chase out last night's confetti, a few crusts of stale bread, and the house cat, who returns, undeterred, 15 minutes later, ready to supervise the next cleaning round. Anything more stubborn, like spilled ale that has fused with the floorboards, simply becomes part of the decor. You're not cleaning it, you're adding character. Sheets are another adventure. New arrivals get the freshest linens, which means they have the fewest visible stains and retain the faintest whiff of lavender or, on a bad day, onions. If you're a regular, you know not to ask too many questions about the origin of that mysterious patch. The laundry system is simple. When a sheet starts developing its own ecosystem, it's time to drag it outside for a public airing. There, it's thwacked against a rock, doused with a bucket of water, and left to dry, usually in the company of other clean items and a flock of curious pigeons. Stubborn marks? Those are heritage spots. Congratulations, you're part of brothel history now. If a client actually requests a fresh towel, there's a brief, frantic hunt through the laundry pile to find something that's at least mostly dry. Pro tip: always smell it first. If it passes the sniff test, it's ready to go. If not, more lavender, lots more. The secret is layering fragrances until the original odor admits defeat. Sometimes the smell of clean is so overpowering it brings tears to your eyes. Or maybe that's just the ammonia. For the rare deep clean, say after a particularly wild festival or an unfortunate food fight, the staff goes all out. Windows are flung open to invite in fresh air, which smells mostly of horses. Beds are propped up to allow the rushes underneath to breathe, and every remaining candle is lit in the desperate hope that enough light will scare away whatever's living under the furniture. The bravest soul is sent under the beds with a stick and a prayer. Nobody talks about what they find. It's best for everyone's peace of mind. Broken furniture is never discarded, just creatively repurposed. A chair missing 2 legs? Now it's a footstool. A cracked chamber pot? Flower vase. A curtain with holes? Congratulations, you're in the VIP suite. It's called ventilation. Everything is patched, reused, or covered with a slightly larger object, in what can only be described as interior design by Tetris. Cleaning supplies are whatever the staff can cobble together. Soap is made from leftover kitchen grease and ashes, sometimes with a splash of strong spirits if the barkeep is feeling generous. Rags are torn from clothes so worn out, even the most optimistic client wouldn't try to pawn them. Buckets are rare, coveted treasures that disappear mysteriously and reappear only when someone threatens to tell the madame. And yet, despite all odds, and possibly because nobody has the time or energy to worry too much, life in the brothel goes on. Stains become stories. Smells become traditions. Cleaning is less a battle and more a truce with entropy, and the one unbreakable rule is never, ever look under the bed. That's where the true secrets, lost socks, and possibly the house ghost all reside. Sleep tight. Dinner is served. The chef is also the bouncer, and tonight's menu includes pottage, ale, and something described as surprisingly fresh bread. Spoiler: it is not. Most customers drink enough to forget what they're eating. It's a survival instinct. Let's set the scene. You're hunched at a splintery table, watching the kitchen through a smoky haze as the bouncer, turned chef, apron askew, ladles mysterious stew into wooden bowls. He's using the same ladle he threatened someone with earlier, but at least it's multi-purpose. The pottage itself is less of a dish and more of a community project. There's a rumor that the same stew has been bubbling away for years, with new ingredients added as needed and nothing ever fully removed. What's in it tonight? Carrots, maybe. Something green, definitely. Unidentifiable lumps, always. Is that a fishtail? Possibly. Best not to ask. The surprisingly fresh bread arrives with a reassuring thud. It's so dense you could use it as a doorstop, and you get the sense that someone actually has. You can break off a piece if you're feeling strong, or you can just admire it as a work of edible sculpture. Some patrons try to soak it in the pottage, but the bread resists with the determination of a well-fortified castle wall. Eventually, you give up and decide to use it as a plate for your cheese, a cheese so aromatic it might qualify as a sentient life form in certain circles. The drink menu is robust, if your definition of robust is ale, or ale with something floating in it. The house ale is dark, warm, and comes in a mug that's seen better centuries. It's brewed on-site, possibly in the same barrel used to wash the chef's socks. Wine is available for those feeling fancy, but beware. It's often so sour it's rumoured to double as a cleaning product. The adventurous can try the house special, a mystery concoction with an aftertaste that can only be described as why. The staff have mastered the art of distraction. If someone dares to ask what's in the stew, the serving girl will smile sweetly, pour another round, and start an argument between two customers about whether it's rabbit or just very old chicken. If the cheese moves on its own, you're encouraged to consider it a sign of luck. And if your bread cracks a tooth, well, you weren't using that one anyway. As the night wears on, the true purpose of the food becomes clear. It's a vehicle for drinking more ale. The stronger the drink, the less anyone notices the flavour or the texture of dinner. Conversation grows louder. The lute player drowns out the slurping, and every toast is just another excuse to avoid chewing. Every so often, someone claims to have found a coin baked into their loaf, but it usually turns out to be a particularly tough seed. Tradition says you should keep eating anyway. Tradition, in this case, is wrong. On feast days, the menu is upgraded. There might be a bit of salted pork, a handful of dried fruit, or, if the madame is feeling generous, a new batch of pottage that's almost indistinguishable from the old, except for the addition of slightly less despair. For regulars, these small upgrades are a cause for celebration, or at least fewer complaints. For newcomers, they're just a reminder that hope is best served with a side of skepticism. And yet, somehow, there's a sort of camaraderie in every mealtime disaster. Patrons clink mugs, share stories, and bond over bread so tough it could be classified as armour. The food isn't good, but it's memorable. And really, what more can you ask from a medieval brothel than a meal you'll never forget, no matter how hard you try? Bon appetit. And maybe order extra ale, just to be safe. There's always something happening. A bard plays a tune, a dice game gets heated, and somewhere in the corner, two patrons debate whether that was a rat or a very bold ferret. You're never bored. You're never relaxed, but you're never bored. Every brothel worth its salt, or at least its sawdust, prides itself on keeping the guests occupied. Here, entertainment is both a promise and a threat. The evening usually kicks off with the bard, who has memorized exactly 3 tunes, one lively, one mournful, and one that suspiciously sounds like the first 2 played at the same time. His lute is missing a string, but nobody's willing to pay for a new one, so he just compensates with extra enthusiasm. Sometimes he's joined by a singer who claims she once performed for a duke, but according to local legend, it was actually a goose with a fancy hat. Games of chance quickly follow. Dice clatter across tables, some carved, some improvised from animal bones, all somehow loaded in favor of whoever yells the loudest. The regulars can spot a cheating hand from across the room, but calling someone out is risky business. More often, accusations devolve into creative insults and impromptu poetry slams, where rhyming is optional but volume is mandatory. Losers sulk, winners gloat, and the house always manages to take a mysterious entertainment fee off the top, just to keep things interesting. Not all performances are intentional. The clientele itself is a never-ending parade of dramatic outbursts and accidental slapstick. There's the merchant who insists he can juggle, he cannot. There's the travelling peddler with a trained chicken, which mostly just pecks at crumbs, and the occasional unguarded shoelace. The madam sometimes referees a contest of who can drink the most ale without falling off the bench, an event that usually ends with at least one contender serenading the fireplace and another loudly declaring their undying love for the barmaid. Spoiler: the barmaid is not impressed. For the more sophisticated crowd, meaning anyone still upright after midnight, there's storytelling. Tales get taller as the night grows longer. Pirates on the high seas, lords in disguise, and, inevitably, the saga of the haunted chamber pot. It rattles at night. Nobody knows why. Nobody really wants to find out. Occasionally, the local poet makes an appearance, reading verses about lost love, epic battles, or, in one memorable case, a sonnet dedicated to turnips. Nobody listens, but everyone pretends to, because the poet pays in actual coin. Sometimes, the entertainment takes on a competitive edge. Arm wrestling is popular, as is Catch the Ferret, which is less a game and more an ongoing battle between man, beast, and gravity. Music and games are interrupted only by the arrival of a well-known guest, the town watch, a travelling knight, or, once, a wandering monk who turned out to be an escaped actor looking for a new audience. If things ever get too rowdy, the staff steps in, not to stop the chaos, but to monetize it. There's a small fee for table repair, another for emotional support, and an ongoing raffle for who gets to keep the bard's hat if he plays Greensleeves again. Bets are placed on everything from who'll win at dice to how long before the madam loses patience and chases everyone outside with a mop. And then, there's the magic hour. The lute is finally silent. Dice have vanished into someone's sleeve, and the survivors gather for one last drink before the night ends. The laughter fades to murmurs, the ferret or rat makes one final appearance, and the candlelight softens the rough edges of the night's adventures. You're still not relaxed, but for a moment, as the stories wind down and the bard hums a sleepy tune, you almost feel at home. Almost. Just don't ask for an encore, you're liable to get one, and it'll probably involve juggling chickens. There's a single tin bathtub for the entire house, and if you want hot water, you'd better have coin and patience. Most opt for a splash of rose water and the hope that no one notices they haven't bathed since Michaelmas. Let's talk about washing up in the medieval brothel, an Olympic event involving stamina, creativity, and luck. The bathtub itself is an artifact, a dented tin relic perched in a corner near the kitchen, doubling as a wash tub on Mondays and a makeshift beer cooler on feast days. If you want to bathe, the first challenge is locating the tub. It migrates throughout the house based on who's cleaning what, who needs it most, and whether the cat has claimed it for a nap. You inquire about a bath. The staff exchange knowing looks. You are politely informed of the service fee for drawing hot water, which climbs higher with each request, peaking sharply if the well is frozen or the woodpile is low. Even then, hot is a loose promise. Your water will be delivered in 3 installments: lukewarm, cooler, and don't ask. With enough time in between for your toes to question every decision you've ever made. Should you complain, you're given a fresh sprig of mint and a speech about how nobles in the next town over haven't had a real bath since the last king died. Soap is a luxury and comes in exactly 2 varieties: lye and lard, or, if you're feeling regal, ashes and lard. Scented options are available, provided you count slightly less offensive than yesterday as a scent. Bathers lather, rinse, and finish with a bucket rinse, delivered by a staff member who's in a hurry to get back to the kitchen. Privacy is minimal. Modesty is for the rich. Most houseworkers forego the ordeal. Instead, they become connoisseurs of perfume and herbal water. Lavender, rose, and rosemary are dabbed liberally behind ears, under arms, and, in moments of desperation, on boots. The smell of the brothel is a cocktail of sweat, soap, and so much floral water that walking through the main room is like being mugged by a bouquet. If someone smells suspiciously clean, it's assumed they're up to something. Clothes receive similar treatment. Since proper laundry is both time-consuming and hazardous to your garments, the usual routine is to air everything out by the window, shake it twice, and declare it fresh. Socks are a rare treasure. Those with more than one pair are envied and suspected of sorcery. Shoes, too, are polished with anything available, lard, spit, or strong ale, and left by the hearth in the hope that they'll dry before the next shift. Hair is another story. The lucky keep it braided, pinned, or hidden beneath hats, occasionally rinsed with rainwater, collected in a barrel out back. Always check for floating things first. There's a communal comb, a source of both grooming and gossip, and anyone caught with lice gets a day off, mostly to avoid spreading it to the clientele, but also as an unspoken reward for honesty. Facial hair is trimmed with dull scissors or, if you're brave, a borrowed razor. No one blames you for uneven results. When it comes to guests, discretion is encouraged, but sometimes desperation overrules etiquette. The staff become masters of subtle signals. If someone leans away, offers an extra sprig of rosemary, or quietly suggests the outdoor seating, you know it's time to freshen up. Repeat offenders might receive a visit from the madame herself, armed with a bucket, a bar of soap, and a smile that says, "Comply or sleep outside." Still, somehow, everyone manages. The house is a swirl of sweat and roses, pottage and lavender. In a place where baths are rare but laughter is not, you realize the most important part of personal hygiene is confidence, a dash of perfume, and the ability to pretend that nobody minds the faint aroma of last Tuesday. After all, in the brothel, it's what's on the inside, and how convincingly you fake cleanliness that counts. The house uniforms are a mashup of as little fabric as possible, and patches upon patches. Lace is a luxury. Most clothing is chosen for how quickly it can be mended or, if necessary, burned. Let's just say you won't be seeing the brothel on the cover of medieval Vogue. The dress code here is strictly utilitarian, and the only thing more creative than the tailoring is the staff's ability to pass off a curtain as a nightgown. Need something alluring? How about a chemise with 3 mysterious stains and a ribbon that might once have been blue? If you're lucky, your outfit has all its buttons. If you're really lucky, they're even in the front. Every ensemble tells a story, and none of them have happy endings. Take the infamous house robe, a relic that survived more midnight escapes than the local jail. It's patched in so many places it's basically a quilt with armholes. The madame insists it's vintage. The staff call it the invisibility cloak, because when you wear it, everyone tries not to make eye contact. Shoes? A luxury. Most opt for slippers, wooden clogs, or whatever can be fashioned from the remnants of last week's laundry day. If someone arrives in matching socks, the house treats it like a royal visit. Colours are a gamble. Faded reds, suspicious browns, and the ever-popular once white dominate the palette. Anything brighter immediately marks you as a newcomer or as someone who's lost a bet. The more patches, the higher your status. After all, it means you've lasted longer than most. That little tear near the hem? That's not damage, it's ventilation. Holes in the sleeves? Perfect for thumb wrestling and spontaneous arm wrestling matches. Lace, when it appears, is handled like gold. There's one strip in the whole house, and it rotates among the staff for special occasions. High rollers, or as a reward for surviving a week of night shifts. It's rumored the lace is haunted, and anyone wearing it is doomed to spill something on themselves before midnight. Silk? Forget it. The only silk in the brothel is the spider variety, hiding in the rafters and plotting its next move. Accessories are an exercise in practicality. Scarves hide stains, hats hide hair, and pins keep everything together, sometimes literally. If a piece of clothing gives up in the middle of a shift, you grab the sewing kit and perform emergency repairs right there at the bar. The record for fastest fix is held by Maud, who reattached a sleeve with 2 stitches and a healthy dose of profanity while pouring ale with her other hand. The customers barely noticed. Perfume, if you can call it that, is whatever's handy. Lavender from the garden, a dash of kitchen herbs, and, in desperate times, the house's infamous eau de. The goal is to mask the scent of old pottage and last week's stress. Success is rare, but everyone pretends not to notice. Jewelry is even rarer, usually borrowed, sometimes won at dice, always a target for sticky fingers. You wear your treasures discreetly, tucked into bodices or hidden under aprons, because flaunting anything shiny is a surefire way to leave work lighter than you arrived. Of course, some clients have preferences. They request velvet, silk, or something more exotic. The staff do their best, which means creative storytelling. This is imported velvet. From France, it's just been loved a bit too much. Or, this tunic? Oh, the faded look is all the rage in Venice. Peasants everywhere are wearing it. In the end, brothel fashion is a delicate balance of resilience and resignation. You wear what you have, you mend what you can, and if it all falls apart, well, you just call it a new trend. Because in this line of work, confidence is the best accessory, and nothing makes an outfit pop quite like surviving another night on the job with most of your clothes and your dignity intact. The walls are thin, the doors don't lock, and if you want alone time, your only hope is pretending to be asleep so convincingly that even the rats let you be. Privacy is less a right and more a rumor. The first thing you notice after a few minutes in the brothel isn't the perfume or the candlelight or even the 3-legged cat eyeing your shoelaces. It's the sound. Voices drift through walls like smoke. Conversations in one room become punchlines in the next. And secrets have a shelf life of about 12 seconds. You discover quickly that there's no such thing as a private conversation, only whispered negotiations in dark corners and the eternal hope that Maud, the barmaid, isn't eavesdropping from behind the curtain. Spoiler. Maud is always eavesdropping. The rooms themselves are optimistic about the concept of personal space. Every door comes with a latch that might work if you hold it just right and recite a small prayer. Windows open onto alleyways or the world's least romantic courtyard. Curtains exist, but they're made of such thin linen you can track the phases of the moon through them. More than one guest has been startled awake by the sight of a nose pressed against the glass. Sometimes a curious child, sometimes the local goat, occasionally someone who swears they're just checking the weather. Alone time, should you require it, is achieved by subterfuge and social maneuvering worthy of a minor noble at court. The best technique? Become invisible. Read a book, or at least pretend books are rare, but so is literacy. Face the wall and adopt an air of deep philosophical despair. If you're convincing enough, even the most persistent customer will decide you're not worth the trouble. Veteran staff recommend strategic napping, eyes closed, gentle snoring, and crucially, never flinching, even if someone drops a tankard nearby. If you twitch, you're caught, and the next thing you know, you're being recruited to help mop up spilled stew or referee a dice game gone wrong. Privacy is also a communal illusion. If you share a room with others, and you probably do, there's an unspoken agreement. What happens behind the curtain stays behind the curtain. Unless it's funny, then it gets retold at breakfast. Everyone develops selective hearing. Nobody asks why there are 2 pairs of feet under the bed, or why the windows open at midnight, or why the madam's slippers are always the first thing to vanish during a raid. Of course, the lack of privacy isn't always a bad thing. Eavesdropping is a valuable skill. It's how you find out who's late with their rent, who owes the cook money, and which noble is trying to sneak out the back door before sunrise. Information travels fast, sometimes faster than the staff can keep up. Gossip, it turns out, is the true currency of the house. If you want to know anything, just listen. Or better yet, make friends with the laundry girl. She knows everything. Sometimes, the brothel provides a little privacy for a price. The so-called VIP room is just a regular room with a slightly heavier curtain and a sign that says, "Do not disturb," which is universally ignored. Guests who demand discretion are led through a complicated maze of hallways and back stairs, only to arrive in a room directly above the kitchen, where the cook's arguments with the cat provide a constant soundtrack. For a few extra coins, you might even get a lock on the door. It probably won't work, but it's the thought that counts. Still, in the chaos of brothel life, you discover a strange comfort in the lack of privacy. No one judges, no one pretends. Everyone is a little too close, a little too loud, and a little too honest. It's messy, but it's real, and if you ever truly need alone time, well, there's always the roof. Just watch out for the pigeons. Every night brings a rotating cast of characters. Some with gold, most with stories, all with secrets. Nobles try to be discreet. Villagers just try to get a seat. The best stories are whispered at 2 a.m., over ale and shared regrets. The first thing you notice about the clientele isn't what they wear, but how they move. Nervous glances, purposeful strides, the odd tiptoe past the madame's line of sight. The local noble slips in, hood drawn, hoping the patchy candlelight and a quick dash of perfume will disguise him as just another travelling merchant. Spoiler, no one is fooled. Even the cat recognizes him. The staff exchange knowing nods. His coin is real, but so is his anxiety. He's come to blend in, which in practice means sitting stiffly in the corner, drinking water, well, mostly water, and occasionally flinching at the sound of laughter. Then there are the tradesmen, the lifeblood of any brothel. The carpenter with sawdust in his hair, the butcher who swears he's just here for the music, the blacksmith whose booming laugh can shake dust from the rafters. They gather in clumps, swapping gossip, complaining about taxes, and loudly betting on everything from dice games to whether the bard will break another string before midnight. These are the folks who keep the house humming, reliable, rowdy, and blissfully unconcerned with discretion. If they have secrets, they leave them at the door, wrapped in laughter and bravado. Villagers make up the numbers. There's the baker's boy, in for his first real taste of adulthood, and instantly out of his depth. The farmer's wife who comes to visit her cousin but mostly stays for the ale and a rare night of music. There's the elderly spinner who's been dropping by since before the house had a roof, always ready to exchange wisdom for a mug of ale and a comfortable chair. Some arrive with friends, some sneak in alone, but all leave a mark, usually in the form of a half-remembered song or an IOU scratched onto the bar with a borrowed knife. And then, of course, there are the travellers. Foreign merchants with extravagant hats and questionable manners, actors looking for a sympathetic ear and a free meal, mysterious strangers who claim to be just passing through. Their stories are wild, their coins are sometimes real, and their sense of direction is universally terrible. The brothel is their compass, and, on particularly stormy nights, their shelter. You can spot them by the way they stare at the menu, trying to figure out what, exactly, pottage is and whether eating it counts as a dare. Not all patrons are there for the same reasons. The hopeful romantic arrives with flowers. Well, something that might be flowers, possibly weeds. The heartbroken poet drowns his sorrows in song, hoping to impress someone, anyone, with his rhyming couplets. The gambler is always at the dice table, swearing tonight is the night. It never is. The travelling knight claims to be on a quest and spends the evening recounting his exploits, which grow more dramatic and less believable with every round of ale. By midnight, the brothel has become a living tapestry of secrets and schemes. Nobles plot in shadows, villagers swap tales of ghostly cows and stolen chickens, merchants debate prices in 3 languages, and someone, always, tries to pay their tab with a song. If you listen carefully, you'll catch the whispered exchanges, confessions of love, confessions of theft, confessions about who really stole the last piece of cheese. The madame, naturally, hears everything. She files away information for future leverage, sometimes offering a sly smile to let you know she's onto you. As the candles burn low and the music fades, the clientele begin to drift out. Some to warm beds, some to cold fields, some to whatever passes for a happy ending in this corner of the world. What remains is the sense that, for a few hours, everyone belonged. Noble or not, rich or broke, everyone's just another face in the flickering firelight, united by secrets, regrets, and the hope that nobody will remember too much come morning. And if you're lucky, the only thing you'll leave behind is your worries. Well, and maybe your dignity. But that's what tomorrow night is for. When things get out of hand, and they do, the staff transforms into a well-oiled crisis management team. The bouncer, a large person named Tiny, handles most problems by simply looking at them. For the rest, there's always the option to call the local watch, who may or may not be already inside playing dice. Keeping the peace in a medieval brothel is a bit like refereeing a cat fight inside a chicken coop. Noisy, unpredictable, and occasionally dangerous for everyone involved, including the referee. The brothel may be a haven of tolerance, but it runs on a delicate balance of chaos and order, and nothing tests that balance like a customer who's had one too many mugs of questionable ale. Tiny, the bouncer, is the house's first line of defense. Standing at 6 feet wide and just about as tall, Tiny is equal parts guardian angel and deterrent. He rarely needs to raise his voice. His glare alone has been known to quiet arguments, halt wood, be thieves, and even convince a nobleman's purse to untangle itself from a belt by accident. His arms are large enough to carry 2 drunks at once, and his patience is legendary, until it isn't. Tiny's favorite tactic is to quietly loom over troublemakers until they suddenly remember pressing appointments elsewhere. For stubborn cases, he simply picks them up, politely but firmly, and deposits them in the alley, feet first and pride last. Of course, not all trouble comes in the form of rowdy brawlers. Sometimes it's a dice game that turns from friendly wager to international incident. Sometimes it's a wandering minstrel who takes offense at someone's opinion of his new song. To be fair, it did rhyme love with glove 12 times in one verse. The staff has a system for these moments, a series of practiced glances, coded phrases, and, if all else fails, the deployment of Maud with her infamous wooden spoon. More than one bickering patron has been separated by the sheer force of her scowl. For larger disturbances, say, an impromptu wrestling match between a butcher and a bishop, or the rare but memorable chamber pot incident, the local watch is summoned. The watch is both a blessing and a liability. On a good night, they're sober, armed, and interested in upholding the peace. On a typical night, they're found at the back table, deep in a game of dice, debating who has the cleanest boots and entirely unaware of the chaos behind them. Summoning the watch generally involves the staff promising a round of ale or, if necessary, threatening to tell the madame about the borrowed cheese from last week. The real secret to brothel security, however, is prevention. The staff have become masters at reading the mood of the room. They know when to refill a tankard, when to clear the dice, and when to gently but firmly nudge a guest toward the exit before things get out of hand. They spot newcomers with a chip on their shoulder, identify potential lovers' quarrels, and keep a watchful eye on regulars with a history of bad decisions. It's an art form, honed by years of experience and a deep understanding of human nature and the laws of physics, given how often someone ends up flying through the front door. Occasionally, the house will employ creative strategies. an impromptu song to distract the crowd, a round of the house-pickled eggs to soak up the ale, or a sudden announcement that the madame is coming, guaranteed to restore order in record time. The staff knows how to turn a riot into a conga line and a fistfight into a conga line with slightly more bruises. And for truly persistent troublemakers, there's always the ultimate punishment: banishment. The offender's name is added to the infamous list behind the bar, their face drawn, badly, on a scrap of parchment, and from that moment on, they are the only soul in town unable to get a drink, a bed, or the time of day from anyone in the house. So rest easy, traveller. In the wild, unpredictable world of the medieval brothel, safety is never guaranteed, but you can always count on Tiny and, in a pinch, Maud and her spoon to keep the peace, or at least to break up the brawls before anyone ruins the pottage. Payment is up front, and if you forget, the madame remembers. There's a strict no-credit policy, unless you're the local baron, in which case, congratulations, you now owe the house your favourite goat. From the moment you step into the brothel, your coin purse is on the clock. No one expects you to keep track of your own tab. Why would they, when the madame's memory is as sharp as a newly forged dagger and twice as dangerous? If you ask to run a tab, the staff will smile politely and suggest you run a bath instead. You pay before you play, before you drink, before you even sit on a chair that still has all four legs. This is not just policy, it's survival. The price list is written in chalk behind the bar and changes faster than the ale turns sour. A mug of ale? 2 pennies? A plate of stew? 3 or 4 if you want bread? Entertainment? That's negotiable depending on your expectations, your mood, and how convincingly you pretend to be a visiting merchant from Antwerp. The madame personally sets the rates each evening, factoring in supply and demand, local weather, the town gossip, and, just occasionally, her own desire for a new pair of shoes. For regulars, there are special discounts. The discount is, don't break anything and you might keep your shirt. For everyone else, prices have a way of creeping upward the later it gets. Some customers think they're clever, ordering food and drink in stages to avoid a big bill. The staff has seen this before. You'll be politely reminded that your empty cup is not a coupon and your loyalty card expired during the last plague. As for payment methods, coin is king. Gold, silver, or copper, no one here is picky. As long as it's real and doesn't have a suspicious notch, barter is tolerated if you're a known face. 1 egg, 2 loaves of bread, or the aforementioned goat have all changed hands in lieu of coin. But woe to the traveller who tries to pay with stories, promises, or future favours. The madame will take your story, enjoy your tale, and then gently nudge you out the door with a reminder that poetry doesn't pay the bills or mend the windows. The house runs a tight operation. Every coin is counted, every bill is settled, and every attempt to dodge the tally is met with swift, creative justice. If you do try to sneak out without paying, don't be surprised if your shoes disappear overnight or if you're served a special stew the next evening, one with enough salt to preserve your dignity for the next century. Repeat offenders find themselves the subject of the staff's jokes for weeks, which, in a place where everyone hears everything, is a fate worse than banishment. Credit is granted only to the most established of patrons, and even then, it comes with a heavy price. The local baron has been on the house books for years. He owes so many chickens, goats, and barrels of cider that the madame is considering opening a small farm in his name. The unwritten rule is simple. If you're important enough, your bill is a town legend, and your embarrassment is part of the entertainment. Taxes are another reality. The brothel pays a monthly business fee to the local authorities, who arrive in a pack, help themselves to an inspection meal, and leave with full bellies and even fuller pockets. The madame, ever the strategist, has factored this into the prices. So if you think your ale tastes like bureaucracy, you're not wrong. And yet, for all its stinginess, the brothel has a reputation for fairness. You pay what you owe, you get what you pay for, mostly, and everyone knows the rules. If you come up short, there's always a job washing dishes, sweeping floors, or, if you're brave, entertaining the regulars with an impromptu performance. After all, in the medieval brothel, cash is king, but creativity is sometimes worth a discount. Just don't ask for a receipt. The madame keeps all the records, and you do not want to see the ledger. Sometimes, someone gets the wrong idea and tries to propose marriage. The staff is practiced at gently, and sometimes not so gently, steering hearts back to reality. There are no fairy tale endings here, just slightly improved odds of not dying alone. Every brothel regular learns quickly. The main thing being sold here isn't love, it's company, companionship, conversation, and, if the price is right, a fleeting illusion that you are the center of someone's universe. For some, the illusion sticks. Fueled by 3 pints of house ale and a sad ballad from the bard, a merchant will suddenly find himself moved to poetry. A minor noble, flush with cash and loneliness, will attempt a grand romantic gesture involving wilted flowers and a half-remembered sonnet. It's never the first time, and it won't be the last. The staff have their techniques down to an art form. Gentle laughs, soft smiles, and practiced hands slide away wandering proposals. For the repeat offenders, a well-timed reminder of the brothel's no returns, no refunds, no engagements policy does the trick. Maud, the barmaid, keeps a secret stash of pre-written rejection notes for the persistent, "Thank you for your offer, but the cat and I are already spoken for." It's all part of the job, as expected as changing the sheets or dodging a flying tankard during a lover's spat. Those who work in the brothel become experts at reading the telltale signs of a crush. The nervous laughter, the hopeful promises of better times ahead, the awkward, stammering declarations of eternal devotion after just one dance and a shared bowl of stew. The most hopeless romantics are usually the quiet ones, the lonely ones, the travelling scribe who spends half the night recounting stories from home, or the widow who remembers every kindness. The staff offer sympathy, a listening ear, and, sometimes, a gentle push back toward reality. Love is grand, darling, but it doesn't pay for new pillows. Every so often, a guest insists their feelings are different. No, really. It's true love this time. Cue the collective sigh of the staff. The brothel has a running pool on how long it'll take before they realize the hard truth. Romance here comes with a price tag and, occasionally, a hangover. Proposals are common, rejections are routine, and sometimes someone tries to leave a promise ring made out of bread crust. It's still better than last year's attempt, a song written entirely in turnip metaphors. If a would-be suitor doesn't get the hint, the madame herself steps in. She's heard every line, every plea, every "my heart is yours forever if you'll only give me a chance." Her response is legendary. A gentle hand on the shoulder, a look that can curdle milk, and a reminder that everyone here is in the business of making memories, not commitments. If things get out of hand, she threatens to invite the suitor's mother for dinner. It's remarkably effective. Love among the staff is equally complicated. Workplace relationships are discouraged, but hearts have a mind of their own. The brothel has seen its share of secret romances, passionate feuds, and awkward breakfast silences after last night's grand gestures fall flat. Most staff members agree. Love is a luxury. Friendship, loyalty, and the occasional dance by candlelight are safer bets. Yet, despite all cynicism, hope lingers. Some clients really do just want to talk, to share a joke, to remember what it's like to be seen. On rare nights, 2 lonely souls will share a song and a moment that's almost real. Before reality, usually in the form of spilled ale or the rat, reminds them where they are. So if you're looking for love in a medieval brothel, adjust your expectations. You won't find a fairy tale, but you might find a friend, a warm smile, and a story you'll retell. probably with more romance and less detail. And isn't that, in its own way, a kind of happy ending? Colds, coughs, suspicious rashes. These are the perks no one advertises. The brothel keeps a small stash of herbal remedies, most of which taste worse than the original illness. There's always a rumor about the plague, and everyone pretends not to notice. Working in a medieval brothel is not for the faint of heart, or for anyone who's squeamish about bodily fluids, airborne germs, or the ambiguous nature of that sticky spot near the kitchen. Every new arrival is greeted not only with a polite nod and a rundown of the house rules, but also a side-eye from the resident healer who's quick to point out the location of the medicinal cabinet, which, for the record, is a wooden box under the stairs guarded by the house cat and a particularly stern-looking onion. In this house, illness is democratic. Nobles, tradesmen, staff, everyone shares the same air, the same half-clean linens, and the same bucket of questionably potable water. If one person gets the sniffles, by morning the entire building sounds like a goose farm in allergy season. Coughs echo down the hallway with the solemnity of church bells, and the phrase, "Don't worry, it's just a chill," becomes the house mantra. Rashes are dealt with by scratching, strategic use of scarves, and occasionally a strong recommendation to keep your distance from the cheese. When someone falls genuinely ill, the brothel brings out its arsenal of home remedies. There's dried thyme for coughs, honey for sore throats, and an unnamed root that tastes like wet shoe but is guaranteed, by the madame who's never actually tried it, to flush the demons out. For fevers, the preferred cure is a cold compress made from yesterday's bread and a prayer to whichever saint happens to be on duty. If the malady lingers, a local physician may be called. His qualifications? He owns a hat with a feather and a jar full of leeches. In his defense, the leeches seem to know what they're doing. Of course, not all hazards are so easily treated. The brothel's close quarters mean lice and fleas have permanent residency. Every staff member becomes an expert at hunting down pests, swapping stories of the time the bouncer found 3 fleas and a beetle doing the conga on his sleeve. Baths are encouraged, but seldom effective, and perfume is wielded with the enthusiasm of a knight with a new sword. Then there are the more serious rumours. The shadow of the Black Death never quite leaves, even years after the last outbreak. If someone starts sneezing too much, or if there's a rumour of fever in the next village, panic sets in. Garlic is hung by the windows, clients are encouraged to keep their distance, and the madame increases the price of rose water by a factor of 3. Every minor illness suddenly becomes a matter of grave suspicion. Was it just last night's stew, or something more sinister? The only real certainty is that the kitchen rat always survives. Long-term health isn't much better. The staff joke about house knees and brothel back, the result of long hours, bad mattresses, and heavier trays than anyone in history should ever be expected to carry. Burns, cuts, and mysterious bruises are so routine that no one even asks anymore. There's an unwritten rule: unless you're actively on fire, you're expected to finish your shift. Mental health? No one has the time for it. If you're stressed, you drink. If you're sad, you drink with friends. If you're worried about the existential risks of 15th century brothel life, you drink and dance and tell yourself that tomorrow is another day. And through it all, the brothel survives. It's not health food or wellness retreats that keep everyone going, but grit, laughter, and the belief that things could always be worse. After all, as the staff like to say, you can't catch the plague if you never leave the bar. Sleep tight, and maybe double up on that herbal tea, just in case. Brothel workers are both shunned and indispensable. The local priest preaches against you, but the local priest's brother is a regular. There's always a delicate balance between infamy and influence. Out on the street, the brothel is a topic best whispered about, usually with a shake of the head, a poorly concealed grin, and the phrase, "Well, I heard." The townsfolk will cross themselves if they catch you making eye contact near the front door. Mothers threaten their children with the bad place down the alley, and the local baker insists that he's never set foot inside, which is odd because everyone has seen him leave just before dawn, carrying a bag of yesterday's rolls and a big smile. Yet for all the public outrage, the brothel is the beating heart of after-hours society. It's the only place you can get a pint of ale, a side of gossip, and a little advice on how to mend your socks all under the same roof. Nobles come by for discretion, merchants for negotiation, and the town musicians for a paid audience and, occasionally, free dinner. The madame is on a first-name basis with every constable, blacksmith and cheese merchant in a 10-mile radius. She sends out invitations to the annual housewarming party, and nearly the entire town shows up, quietly, and always with a promise not to mention it in church. Social status in the brothel is a performance art. Regulars are greeted with winks and a seat by the fire. First-timers get the grand tour, usually involving at least one tall tale about the house's history and a gentle warning about the chamber pot. The staff know who can be trusted with secrets, who tips well, and who will try to leave without paying. The pecking order is subtle. The best tables, the freshest bread, the friendliest smiles. Those who have earned respect by generosity, good humor, or sheer persistence find themselves with a kind of honorary status, able to borrow the good cup or reserve the seat by the window. For the workers, reputation is everything. The most popular staff members are the ones who can tell a joke, soothe an ego, and pour a drink without spilling it, most of the time. Their names are muttered with respect at market stalls and in back-alley dice games. If someone dares to insult a brothel worker in public, they'll quickly find themselves at the back of the bread line, or worse, blacklisted from the next village festival. Yet, for all their soft power, the workers are careful. Too much attention brings trouble, too much discretion, and you disappear into the wallpaper. Hypocrisy is the house special. The same folks who decry the brothel's bad influence are often the first through the door after sunset. The priest rails against sin from the pulpit, but doesn't look anyone in the eye during morning confession. His brother, meanwhile, has a standing order for the house wine and a favourite seat by the lute player. It's an open secret, everyone knows, but nobody talks about it unless it's funny, scandalous, or both. The brothel's reputation extends well beyond the town's borders. Travellers seek it out for hospitality, and visiting officials discreetly ask the madame for a quiet evening. There are rumours, always rumours, about which noble was spotted last Tuesday, and whether the mayor paid his tab in coins or chickens. Even the rival brothels send spies, hoping to steal recipes, staff, or, legend has it, the infamous good pillow. In the end, the brothel's real power is its ability to survive. Rain or shine, feast or famine, the house remains open, humming with secrets, laughter, and the knowledge that respectability is just a matter of timing and perspective. As dawn breaks and the regulars sneak home, everyone returns to their daylight roles, baker, priest, noble, or labourer. But they all know the social order of the night is its own kingdom, and as long as there's a story to tell, the brothel's reputation will live on somewhere between shame, necessity, and the best night out you'll never admit to. The brothel exists in a grey area. Legal-ish, taxed, and occasionally raided just so the authorities can prove they're doing something. The madame keeps a list of who to bribe, who to threaten, and who to invite for free drinks on Fridays. Every night, as the candles flicker and the pottage bubbles, the staff keeps one ear open for the sound of boots on cobblestones. Is it another batch of customers, or the dreaded official inspection? The truth is, no one, including the local magistrate, can quite remember what the law says about brothels. Sometimes they're tolerated, sometimes they're not. Sometimes the rules change halfway through a drink. It keeps things exciting. The local constables are a fixture in this balancing act. On paper, they're the law. In practice, they're regulars, playing dice in the back room, sampling the ale strictly for quality assurance, and accepting a plate of cheese with a wink and a promise not to notice anything suspicious. there's always one who takes his role a little too seriously, marching in with a notepad and a frown, demanding to see licenses, receipts, and a written guarantee that no one is having too much fun. The madame handles him personally, offering a drink and a gentle suggestion that his boots could use a polish. The real art of staying open is in knowing which palms to grease. The madame is a master. Her list is longer than the town's tax rolls and 3 times as secretive. If the tax collector shows up, he leaves with a bottle of the good wine and a suddenly improved memory. If the mayor's nephew gets caught in a compromising position, he's invited to dinner, reminded of his tab, and gently persuaded to lose the report on his way back to the town hall. Raids are more ritual than reality. They happen once or twice a year, usually on a slow Tuesday, when the authorities want to show the public that something is being done. The staff is always warned in advance. Beds are made, ledgers are hidden, and everyone practices looking just innocent enough to be suspicious, but not suspicious enough to be interesting. When the watch bursts through the door, they're greeted with a round of applause and an impromptu song from the bard, who has a special number just for such occasions. The inspection lasts as long as it takes to enjoy a free drink and a slice of pie. Fines are an inevitable part of business. The brothel is fined for being too loud, too quiet, too crowded, too empty, or too good at keeping secrets. The money is paid, usually in pennies and never on time, and the receipt goes straight into the fire. If the madame suspects the fines are getting a little too frequent, she drops by the magistrate's office with a bottle of something strong and a reminder that everyone, even judges, needs somewhere to unwind. Sometimes the law isn't the problem, it's the lawbreakers. Rival brothels send spies to stir up trouble, pickpockets target the distracted, and every now and then a would-be outlaw tries to hide out in the house. The madame deals with them swiftly. A few choice words, a whispered threat, and, if necessary, a visit from Tiny, who is very persuasive and has never failed to recover stolen goods or extract a confession. For all its legal tightrope walking, the brothel manages to thrive. The madam knows when to bend, when to stand her ground, and when to host a charity dinner for the local officials. It's all about relationships, knowing who likes what, who needs a favor, and who can be relied upon to keep their mouth shut for the right price. So if you ever wonder how a brothel survives in a world of laws, bribes, and shifting alliances, the answer is simple: with charm, cunning, and the best bribe money can buy. Just don't ask to see the madame's list. That's more heavily guarded than the town treasury. Awkward doesn't begin to cover it. Sometimes family members show up, either to rescue you, to ask for money, or, worst of all, as paying customers. That's a therapy session waiting to happen. No one truly prepares you for the moment a familiar face appears at the brothel's door, clutching a basket of bread and a look of determined hope. Maybe it's your mother, come to stage an intervention, armed with tearful pleas and a vision of your future as a miller's apprentice. Maybe it's a cousin you haven't seen since Michaelmas, here to just say hello. And also borrow a few coins if you're doing so well these days. Or maybe it's your brother, whose main motivation is the cheap ale and the chance to say, "Hey, I know someone on the inside." The worst scenario, of course, is the paying relative. There's a moment of silent recognition across the candlelit room, a freeze in conversation, a record scratch in the lute music. Maybe you lock eyes, maybe you pretend to be the new cook. Either way, there's not enough rosewater in Christendom to scrub that memory away. The staff, to their credit, are experts at managing these incidents, quick to swap out names, usher family to the special table in the back, and invent elaborate tales about how well you're doing in your new embroidery business. Sometimes the madame herself will step in with a performance worthy of the Royal Theatre, directing relatives away from your end of the house with a story about a sudden cheese shortage that only you can solve. Rescue missions are common. Well-meaning mothers and ambitious aunts descend with baskets, baked goods, and dire warnings about the dangers of city life. You could come home, dear. Your father would build you a shed. We have turnips again. It's always the turnips. There's crying, there's guilt, and there's always the offer of a better life working for your uncle's taxidermy business. The staff discreetly watch from the shadows, placing bets on whether you'll actually take the bait. Spoiler, you never do. Not after everything you've seen, and certainly not for turnips. Some families are surprisingly supportive. Siblings show up to celebrate feast days, bringing stories from home and news of who's married, who's died, and who's still arguing about the goat. They trade gossip with the staff, sample the ale, and make polite conversation about how lovely your curtains are this year. If your grandmother comes to visit, she'll march straight in, demand a seat by the fire, and regale everyone with stories from her day, which sounds suspiciously like the stories you tell now, but with even worse plumbing. Then there's the family drama that happens entirely in whispers. Parents who pretend not to know, neighbors who pretend not to care, and that one distant uncle who spends every visit loudly insisting he's just here for the stew. In a town where gossip moves faster than the river, the brothel is both a sanctuary and a stage. Your family's reputation is tangled up in your own. Some days, you're the black sheep. Other days, you're the only reason anyone in your bloodline is eating cheese this month. For staff, family ties are both a source of pride and a running joke. They share advice, how to dodge a motherly lecture, how to convince your cousin you're actually running the place, and how to keep family visits brief. Sorry, I'm on shift. The madame's rules. When it's your turn to play host, your co-workers are ready, hiding embarrassing items, swapping out names, and sending the bouncer to distract the relatives with tales of his bear wrestling days. Ultimately, family and brothel life exist in a perpetual, awkward dance. Love and embarrassment in equal measure. You roll your eyes, you hug, you invent creative lies about the bakery. And, if necessary, you ply your relatives with enough ale that everyone forgets what they came for in the first place. Because in a medieval brothel, even the most scandalous family secret is just another story for the breakfast table. And you know what? It's probably still less awkward than Christmas dinner. After a long week, you might feel the urge to seek forgiveness. The local priest offers absolution, provided you tithe extra and promise to at least consider being less interesting next week. In the medieval brothel, religious guilt is less a passing feeling and more of a persistent house guest, always lurking in the corner, especially on Sunday mornings when the bells start ringing and the hangover hasn't quite faded. You wake up in a haze, squinting at the sunlight filtering through moth-eaten curtains, and remember you've got a spiritual balance sheet that's a little heavier on the debit side this week. By noon, rumors are swirling. Did you hear? The priest is doubling up on confession hours. Too many sinners, not enough hours in the day. The regulars groan and nurse their mugs. The staff start making jokes about volume discounts for group penance. In a town where everyone knows everyone, discretion is a myth. If you try to sneak out to church incognito, you're probably followed by at least 2 nosy neighbors and, inexplicably, the barmaid's goat. Subtlety is not this town's strong suit. Making your way to confession is a journey in itself. You pass villagers who eye you with the blend of suspicion and envy reserved for people who live life on the edge of respectability, that is. You enter the church with a performance worthy of a repentant saint, quietly ignoring the fact that half your clients are sitting 3 pews over, pretending not to recognize you. The local priest, who moonlights as the town's chief moral authority and part-time gossip columnist, welcomes you with a smile that's equal parts forgiveness and "How much can I get for this story at the next village fete?" Confession is a transaction. There's the standard tithe, the going rate for souls in mild distress, but if you've had a particularly memorable week, and who hasn't, you're gently encouraged to add a little something extra. Did you break any commandments? All of them? There's a surcharge for that, but don't worry, it comes with a bonus prayer. The priest listens patiently as you rattle off your misdeeds, his quill poised over the donation ledger. For major offences, You might be sent to light candles, say 10 Hail Marys, or worst of all, help clean the church steps. Absolution, it turns out, is a renewable resource. Each week brings a fresh opportunity for mistakes and forgiveness, like the world's oldest subscription service. The priest hands out penance the way the madame hands out towels, sparingly, and always with the expectation of prompt return. You promise to try harder next time, while knowing full well you'll be back in the same pew next week, rehearsing new explanations for old behaviors. Some brothel workers attempt shortcuts. They leave offerings of bread, cheese, or even homemade pottage at the church door, spiritual bribes, if you will. Rumour has it that St. Agnes is especially fond of onions, which is convenient because onions are one thing the brothel has in abundance. For especially tricky cases, there's always the fallback: help the local orphanage, donate to the candle fund, or volunteer to read aloud at evening mass. Just don't read from the brothel's guest book. Despite the ritual, religious guilt rarely lingers for long. The house has its own spiritual code, a rough blend of treat others well, share your bread, and never wake someone before noon unless the building's on fire. If you slip up, there's always forgiveness. If not from the priest, then from the staff, who know exactly what it's like to be judged on rumour and reputation. And as night falls, the cycle begins anew. The bells will ring again, the priest will polish his donation box, and you'll have a whole week to add new entries to your spiritual ledger. In the end, maybe that's the real miracle of brothel life. Redemption is always just a confession and a little extra tithe away. Sleep well, and may your next week be slightly less interesting, or at the very least, cheaper to atone for. Competition is fierce. Rival brothels spread rumours, poach staff, and occasionally send over a cake laced with laxatives. If you think modern Yelp reviews are savage, you should see a 15th century turf war. In a town with more brothels than bakeries, reputation is everything. Every establishment boasts its own claim to fame: the softest beds in the Shire, the only house with real silk curtains, or the cleanest mugs for 3 villages. These boasts are all equally suspicious. The locals know the real secret. Whichever brothel has the freshest bread wins the most customers, at least until the next scandal breaks. Spying is a time-honoured tradition. Staff from competing houses will show up disguised as guests, angling for a peek at your menu, your bedding, and maybe your latest trick for getting candle wax out of a petticoat. Rival madames send in their best workers for a night off, only for those workers to spend the evening eyeing every corner, making mental notes, and if they're especially bold, chatting up your staff about how much they're getting paid. It's espionage with a side of innuendo. Trade secrets are precious and guarded with the tenacity usually reserved for royal jewels or the last piece of cheese. Recipes for herbal wine are coded, tucked away in false-bottom chests. Special knots for corsets are passed down in whispers, and the name of the supplier with the least mouldy bread is a secret to take to the grave. When the madame suspects industrial espionage, she stages a dramatic confrontation in the middle of the main room just to send a message. It usually works. No one wants to cross a woman who can recall every unpaid tab since 1431. But nothing stirs up trouble quite like the rumour mill. It runs on ale and malice, churning out stories faster than the bards can keep up. One week, it's whispered that the rival house is infested with lice. The next, it's said their wine is just rainwater dyed with beetroot. Occasionally, the rumours turn creative. Last year's scandal involved a ghost, a chicken, and the mayor's missing hat. No one ever found the hat, but the ghost now has a permanent place on the rival's do not serve list. Direct sabotage is rare but memorable. Locks are jammed with honey, banners go missing, and yes, cakes are delivered with extras inside. There's a legendary tale of the great laxative incident. A rival house sent a spiced loaf to celebrate a feast day, and by midnight, half the customers were sprinting to the alley. The madame, never one to let a challenge go, unanswered, responded the next week with a gift basket, of onions so potent they cleared out the competition for days. Staff poaching is an open secret. Promises of higher pay, better rooms, and, most tempting of all, real soap are whispered during slow nights and festival days. The most talented staff are courted like royalty, receiving mysterious notes, extravagant gifts, and the occasional song dedicated in their honor. The less said about the rhyming, the better. If someone does jump ship, it's considered good manners to at least leave the sheets behind. Feast days and fairs are prime turf war battlegrounds. Every brothel rolls out their best performers, their least broken furniture, and their freshest flower garlands. Special offers abound: 2 drinks for the price of 1, a free serenade from the bard, and, for the adventurous, a complimentary foot massage that may or may not involve a chicken. The goal is simple: pack the house, impress the visitors, and outdo the competition in style and spectacle. And yet, in the oddest twist, rival houses sometimes come together. When the church cracks down, when the taxman raises rates, or when there's a particularly rowdy festival, madams call a temporary truce. They share warnings, swap survival tips, and band together to remind the town that, love them or loathe them, brothels are here to stay. Just remember, trust no cake, guard your recipes, and always check the banner for honey. The turf wars are as much a part of brothel life as the pottage and the rumours, and honestly, they make for much better stories. When there's a festival, the brothel doubles as the after-party. The house is packed, the drinks flow, and someone always tries to juggle flaming torches indoors. Spoiler, it never ends well. Festival season is when the brothel truly comes alive, or perhaps just lurches into a different, more chaotic dimension. The streets are thronged with revellers, flower garlands in their hair, coins jingling in their pockets, and mischief on their minds. The brothel staff brace themselves at dawn, knowing by sunset the house will be overflowing with enough stories, songs, and spilled ale to last until next Michaelmas. Preparation begins early. The madame inspects every room with the severity of a military general, making sure the curtains are only slightly singed, the chairs have at least 3 legs, and the special festive pottage is on the boil. Festive meaning it contains 2 different root vegetables instead of 1. Fresh rushes are scattered on the floor, flowers are borrowed from the churchyard, and the house cat is given a stern talking to about not stealing food from the guests. There's even a bonus round of laundry, a holiday miracle in itself. As soon as the bells ring for vespers, the guests begin to arrive. Nobles in disguise, peasants in their festival best, tradesmen ready to celebrate another year of not being fined. The rooms fill with music, bards on lutes, a fiddler with only 3 strings, and the house's resident singer launching into the one song everyone actually knows. Laughter echoes up the stairs, out the windows, and into the alley where a spontaneous dice game is already underway. Every holiday comes with its own traditions. On Saints' Days, there's free bread, slightly less stale than usual, and a house blessing by the local priest, who discreetly pockets a pint before making his rounds. On midsummer, garlands are handed out to the staff, who then spend the night sneezing and fishing petals out of their drinks. On harvest festivals, the menu is expanded to include roast apples and a surprise pie, the contents of which are best not inquired about. Feast days bring out the daredevils. Someone always decides the time is right for a performance. Acrobats, amateur magicians, or the baker's apprentice attempting his infamous fire-juggling routine. This tradition has a perfect record of failure. Every torch ends up in the stew, a pitcher, or, on one memorable occasion, the mayor's wig. The staff keep buckets of water handy, and the madam hands out dry towels as party favours. The real business, of course, happens behind the scenes. Festival tips are double, sometimes triple, and everyone tries to curry favour with the madame for the best shifts. There's a raffle for the lucky room, where the winner receives an extra pillow and a window that closes, luxury on a par with royalty. Side bets are placed on everything: who'll spill the first drink, which guest will be the first to fall asleep under the table, and how long before the goat gets loose in the kitchen again. For the staff, it's a marathon of diplomacy and endurance, juggling demanding guests, keeping the musicians from fistfights, and rescuing half-cooked pies from the embers. Every hour brings a new crisis and a new opportunity for laughter. The camaraderie is contagious. Someone starts a conga line, someone else loses their shoes, and the house collectively agrees not to mention any of it the next morning. As dawn peeks through the shutters, the brothel breathes a sigh of relief. Empty mugs litter the tables, flower petals cover the floor, and somewhere in the distance, the sound of the fiddler playing his last, slightly off-key note. The staff share one last drink, toasting to another festival survived, and the madame quietly counts the takings, already planning for the next great feast. And so the brothel carries on, festival after festival, equal parts chaos, comedy, and community spirit. Because in the end, every holiday is just another excuse for the town's greatest after-party, where memories are made, secrets are spilled, and there's always a new story ready to be whispered at 2 a.m. As the sun rises, everyone tries to act like nothing happened. Staff mop floors, guests sneak out hoping not to be seen, and someone starts frying onions for breakfast, possibly as a weapon, possibly as food. There's a special kind of silence that descends on the brothel in the first light of morning. It isn't peace. Exactly. More like a collective amnesia. Everyone agreeing by unspoken treaty that whatever happened in the candlelight is best left in the dark. Even the furniture seems to sag with exhaustion, chairs slightly more wobbly than the night before, tables sticky with the evidence of last night's house special, and the mysterious footprints of a goose no one remembers letting in. The survivors of the previous night's revelry begin their slow migration out of the main room, squinting at the daylight as if they've never seen it before. Some tiptoe out the back, shoes in hand, faces tucked beneath hoods or scarves. The regulars have developed an impressive set of exit strategies: the sudden errand, the just remembering something urgent at the bakery, and, most commonly, disappear into the crowd and hope no one recognizes you in the market later. If you make it out with your dignity and both shoes, consider it a personal victory. The staff begin the clean-up ritual. First come the mugs, some with more ale than dishwater in them, others containing only the faint hope of last night's good times. Next, the sweep of the floor, a process involving a broom, a dustpan, and a willingness to pretend you haven't just swept up half a pottage loaf and a single accusing sock. The smell of onions fills the air, either as an attempt to mask less pleasant odors, or simply because the cook has run out of ideas. There's always one guest who mistakes the frying onions for a breakfast buffet, only to discover that they're actually being used to treat last night's hangover by sheer olfactory force. Beds are stripped, linens are aired, weather permitting, and every bucket in the building is pressed into service for one task or another. If you're lucky, your bed didn't collapse in the night. If you're really lucky, you find your wayward pillow before the cat claims it as its new throne. The madame floats through the chaos, tallying up coins, lost jewelry, and, on rare mornings, lost guests. There's a running competition among the staff to see who can find the strangest forgotten item. A left shoe, a bishop's mitre, a very angry chicken, or, on one infamous occasion, a manuscript that later turned out to be a shopping list for more ale. The morning after etiquette is an art form. Everyone becomes adept at avoiding eye contact, exchanging brief nods that mean, "Let's never speak of this again." The bard tunes his lute in the corner, strumming gentle, soothing melodies for the benefit of aching heads and wounded pride. Someone fetches water from the well, and someone else, usually the newest staff member, gets assigned the thankless task of airing out the VIP suite, which now smells of equal parts rosewater, ale, and existential regret. Occasionally, there's the walk of shame, a parade of cloaked figures making their way through the market just as the day's bread is coming out of the oven. The town pretends not to see. The town knows. The town has its own stories, and, in truth, Everyone is just glad someone else is providing the entertainment for once. By noon, the house is almost back to normal. Beds remade, floors swept, secrets restored to their hiding places. The staff gather for a quick meal, swapping stories of the night's disasters, triumphs, and close calls. The madame makes a final round, her ledger in hand and her eyes already glinting with plans for tonight. Because in a brothel, there's no time for reflection, just the never-ending cycle of night, morning, and the business of keeping secrets safe until the next round of candlelight. If you survived the night, congratulations. If you survived the cleanup, you're officially part of the family. And if you're eating onions for breakfast, well, just tell yourself it's part of the healing process. What happens when the glamour fades? Some workers save enough to leave. Others become house managers, open rival businesses, or, occasionally, retire to the countryside with enough money for one last, legendary party. The reality of long-term employment in a medieval brothel is a lesson in resilience, improvisation, and creative accounting. The staff joke that the average career span is as long as your knees and your wits hold out. Though some manage to stick around longer than the potted plant in the corner, famous for both its tenacity and its suspiciously alcoholic scent. Retirement, like everything else in brothel life, is rarely straightforward. Saving money is the first challenge. Wages are modest, and tips are as unpredictable as the dice games in the main room. Every extra coin gets tucked away in ingenious hiding spots, sewn into hems, buried in the garden, or stashed behind the loose brick in the kitchen wall, unless the rat gets there first. For every worker who dreams of a cozy cottage by the sea, there's another who spends it all on shoes, perfume, and questionable investments. Like that time someone bought a magic comb that promised to repel lice but only succeeded in attracting crows. The most ambitious workers plot their next move early. Some learn the ropes from the madame herself, mastering the fine arts of negotiation, quick math, and customer psychology. Those who survive the crucible of night shifts and feast day chaos may eventually be promoted to manager, overseeing schedules, settling disputes, and managing the ever-growing list of people who owe the house money. It's less glamorous than it sounds, but comes with a certain gravitas and the only key to the good cupboard. Others see opportunity elsewhere. Opening a rival house is the dream of every ambitious staff member, at least until they realize how much work it actually takes to keep a roof, staff, and clientele all under control. The brothel scene is littered with the tales of former workers who struck out on their own. Some succeed, some return sheepishly for a job at their old stomping grounds, and some vanish into legend, their names whispered with both envy and exasperation every time a new fancy establishment opens down the road. Then there are the true survivors, the ones who make it all the way to retirement, battered but unbowed. The house throws a farewell party for every departing worker, a tradition equal parts celebration and group therapy. There's a ritual presentation of a pillow, embroidered with the house's crest, naturally, a round of toasts, and the ceremonial passing of the house comb. Tales are told, songs are sung, and, if the retiree is particularly beloved, a goat is presented in their honor, along with a warning to never, ever let it inside the new cottage. Some retirees use their savings to buy a tiny farm, or a stall in the marketplace, or simply a patch of land far from the town's gossip. They become legends in their own right, remembered for feats of endurance and tales that grow wilder with each retelling. Every so often, a former worker visits, looking cleaner, better fed, and somehow still haunted by the memory of that one night during the festival. They share advice, invest in good shoes, hide your coins well, and never trust a magic anything. For those who can't, or won't, leave the business, there's always a place in the brothel's unofficial family. Some become mentors, teaching new recruits the best way to avoid a bar fight or survive a conversation with the madame after midnight. Others manage supplies, cook breakfasts, or take charge of cleaning, which mostly means pointing at stains and telling ghost stories about their origin. In the end, brothel retirement isn't so much an ending as a transformation. Whether you leave with a fortune, a limp, or just a heart full of stories, you become part of the house's folklore. Because if there's one thing the brothel guarantees, it's that no one gets out unchanged. And, if you're lucky, you might just get a legendary party to mark the moment you finally sleep in. Every brothel has its stories. A haunted attic, a cursed mirror, a chicken that predicts the weather. These tales are passed down to terrify new staff and amuse the regulars. Sometimes, the stories are even true. On slow nights, when the candles flicker and the wind howls down the alleyways, the brothel becomes a haven for ghost stories and whispered warnings. No one really remembers how the legend of the haunted attic began. Perhaps it was the time someone found a mysterious draft, or when the cat refused to go upstairs for a week. The story goes that an unlucky guest once spent the night in the attic and awoke to find his boots neatly arranged at the foot of the bed, a sure sign of supernatural mischief. Or maybe just the staff trying to be helpful. The lines between ghostly intervention and housework are always a little blurry. Then there's the infamous cursed mirror in the hallway, an ancient, wavy piece of glass that distorts your reflection until you're convinced you've seen your future and it's desperately in need of more sleep. The staff warn newcomers never to look into it after midnight. Supposedly, if you gaze too long, you'll see the face of the house's original madame, who vanished mysteriously after a particularly rowdy festival. The practical explanation is that the mirror is just old and warped from decades of candle smoke. But on quiet nights, when you catch a glimpse of something moving behind you, something that isn't there, you start to wonder. Of course, no collection of urban legends is complete without the chicken that predicts the weather. This legendary bird, named Lady Cluckington, is said to refuse to lay eggs before a thunderstorm and has a perfect record for escaping the house just before rain hits. The staff claim she once pecked out a message foretelling the great ale shortage of 42. Regulars take her behaviour more seriously than any town crier, and wagers on her movements are as common as bets on the dice table. If Lady Cluckington takes shelter in the kitchen, you can bet your boots on a wet market day. But the most infamous legend of all is the haunted chamber pot. Every house has one, the vessel nobody wants to use, known for rattling in the night and emitting a faint, mysterious glow that cannot be explained by science or strong ale. The story changes with every telling. Sometimes it's a vengeful ghost, other times a curse placed by a rival brothel. One version claims it belonged to a disgruntled bishop, whose spirit now seeks revenge on anyone daring enough to use it without proper ceremony. New staff are routinely sent on initiation missions to clean the haunted pot, and their reactions are a reliable source of entertainment for weeks. For guests and staff alike, these stories are more than mere amusements. They serve a practical purpose, warning newcomers not to mess with the attic door, keeping the bravest from hogging the mirror, and offering a built-in excuse for any unexplained noises or missing socks. A clatter in the kitchen? Ghosts. Cold spot by the window? Definitely a curse. Chicken tracks in the hallway? Lady Cluckington, on another supernatural mission. Every now and then, something genuinely strange happens. A candle extinguishes itself for no reason. Dice land on the same number 6 times in a row. Someone claims to see a shadow darting across the room, or wakes to find their pillow on the other side of the bed. The house just shrugs, pours another round, and adds a fresh twist to the legend. In the end, the brothel's urban legends are as much a part of the place as the creaky stairs and the questionable stew. They connect generations of staff and regulars, giving everyone something to laugh about and something to blame when things go bump in the night. So if you hear a noise after dark, just pull up your blankets, keep one eye on the haunted mirror, and remind yourself, in this house, the stories are the only thing scarier than the soup. When the candles burn low and the last guest stumbles home, the house finally exhales. There's a brief moment of peace, just before someone remembers the sheets still need changing, and the madame starts tallying up the night's profits. The mood at closing time is a special blend of relief, exhaustion, and just a hint of dread at what cleanup might reveal. The air smells of spent candles, spilled ale, and dreams best left unspoken. The staff move through the shadowy rooms with the slow, deliberate care of people who've seen too much in one night and know better than to rush into the unknown, especially when the unknown could be anything from a broken mug to a nobleman hiding under the table, hoping to avoid his wife. Tiny, the bouncer, makes a final sweep, gently nudging any stragglers toward the door and collecting forgotten cloaks, shoes, or in one memorable case, a small bag of turnips labelled, "For the Poet." The regulars know the drill. Finish your drink, leave a tip if you haven't already spent it all, and try not to make eye contact with the staff as they start stacking chairs. The last guest always insists on one more round, one more song, or just 5 more minutes to settle a score at the dice table. They never win, but hope is as sticky as the tabletops at this hour. The musicians wind down, plucking out softer tunes meant to soothe the nerves and gently encourage patrons out the door. The bard, nursing sore fingers and an empty mug, offers a final verse, usually a lullaby, sometimes a thinly veiled plea for someone else to pay his tab. The lights dim, the laughter fades, and the staff begin their real work. Cleaning is a group effort, requiring a keen eye, a strong stomach, and a willingness to accept that some stains simply aren't coming out. Mugs are gathered, tables wiped, and anything vaguely edible is corralled for tomorrow's breakfast. There's always at least one surprise: a lost earring, a mysterious shoe, or, on rare and terrible nights, the haunted chamber pot lurking in a corner, reminding everyone of the house's many urban legends. The madame presides over the proceedings with her usual authority, ledger in hand and a knowing glint in her eye. She counts coins, notes, tips, and files away any IOUs for future reference. Revenge, after all, is best served with a side of interest. She surveys the staff, doles out quick praise and the occasional critique, and offers just enough encouragement to keep morale above despair. Tomorrow, she'll do it all again. But tonight, she allows herself a moment of satisfaction. The house survived another night. That's a victory in itself. Once the work is done, the staff gathers for a few precious minutes of rest. They share the night's best stories, commiserate over close calls, and toast to another evening without major incident, or at least without an incident anyone will admit to. Someone inevitably finds a reason to laugh, and for a little while, the house feels like a home again, not just a whirlwind of noise, chaos, and shifting fortunes. If you listen closely, you can hear the creak of floorboards settling, the distant sound of the cat stalking a late-night snack, and the soft sigh of tired souls who've earned their sleep. The candles flicker one last time before being snuffed out, plunging the house into a darkness that is, somehow, peaceful after all the commotion. Closing time at the brothel isn't just the end of a business day. It's the quiet heartbeat that reminds everyone why they come back, night after night. For the stories, the friendships, the mad dashes and secret smiles. The world outside might judge, but inside, for these few minutes, everyone belongs. Tomorrow brings new guests, new disasters, and, with any luck, a few more coins in the jar. But for now, as the last echoes fade and the madam locks the door, all is calm. All is forgiven. At least until the sun comes up. Somehow, every brothel ends up with an unofficial pet, usually a one-eyed cat, a 3-legged dog, or a goose with a vendetta against shoelaces. The animal is adored by staff, tolerated by guests, and feared by anyone who tries to skip out on their bill. If you're lucky, it'll curl up by your feet. If you're unlucky, it'll steal your dinner. Either way, the brothel's mascot is a fixture, part pest control, part emotional support, and part local legend. The house pet doesn't belong to anyone in particular, but everyone claims it on feast days. Take old Muse, the legendary brothel cat. With one eye, half a tail, and a permanent expression of disappointment, Muse is said to have been here longer than the floorboards. Some say she was left behind by a travelling bard. Others swear she simply appeared one winter's night, drawn by the promise of warm fire and easy pickings. However she arrived, she quickly established herself as the true ruler of the house. Muse has the run of the place. She surveys her domain from the windowsill, judges newcomers with a single glance, and has a sixth sense for which guest is likely to spill something delicious. She is both omnipresent and impossible to catch. If you drop a morsel, she appears out of nowhere to claim it. If you try to sit in her favorite chair, you'll find yourself outmaneuvered by a cat who weighs maybe 6 pounds but radiates the confidence of a minor noble. But it's not always a cat. Some brothels are blessed, or cursed, with a dog. Take Patch, the 3-legged mutt who guards the back alley. He's seen more midnight secrets than the madame herself. Loyal to the staff, Patch growls at anyone who raises their voice or tries to slip away without settling their account. His missing leg is the result of a long-forgotten adventure. Rumour has it he once tried to chase a rat all the way to the next village. Patch gets first pick of leftovers, second pick of beds, and is known to nap wherever he pleases. If you step over him, consider yourself judged. And then there's the truly unique mascot, the vengeful goose. No one knows who brought it, and no one dares get rid of it. The goose, called Sir Honks-a-lot, has terrorized shoelaces, stolen sausages, and honked guests out of bed since the year the roof leaked for 3 months straight. Sir Honks-a-lot is equal parts pest and protector, fiercely loyal to the house, and especially to anyone with food. Children adore him, guests avoid him, and the staff keep a running tally of how many shoes he's liberated this month. The pet is more than just a creature, it's an institution. It's the reason the brothel rarely has a mouse problem, and also the reason the bread is always kept high on the shelf. When a guest complains about a missing dinner roll, the staff exchange knowing glances and shrug. It's the mascot, they say. No one argues. The pet has seniority. For the staff, the animal is part emotional support, part confessor. Tears are dried in its fur, secrets whispered to floppy ears, confessions made to an animal who conveniently never repeats them. On tough nights, someone always finds the time to sneak a scrap or share a quiet moment by the hearth, the pet's steady presence reminding them that, whatever else changes, the house is still a home. Every so often, the pet becomes a hero. There's the story of Muse leaping onto a table to chase away a thief, or Patch barking until the madame woke up to stop a fire in the kitchen. Sir Honks-a-lot once led a lost guest back to their room after, of course, demanding tribute in the form of half a meat pie. And when new staff arrive, the pet is the final initiation. Win its approval, and you're in. Annoy it, and you'll spend the night searching for your missing socks. In the wild, unpredictable world of the brothel, the mascot is the one constant. Always present, always hungry, and always just a little bit magic. Orientation at a brothel is less training manual and more learn as you go, don't ask too many questions, and never laugh when a customer removes their hat. The veteran staff teach you everything from pouring the perfect ale to dodging the amorous advances of the town baker again. Your true final exam? Keeping a straight face when someone tries to pay with a live chicken and a poem. Your first day on the job, you're handed a tray, a rag, and a look that says, good luck. Forget team-building exercises or inspirational speeches. Brothel training is survival of the wittiest, and if you can dodge a flying mug, you're halfway to a promotion. The closest thing to a handbook is a list of unofficial rules, scribbled on the back of a beer mat and updated after every major disaster. Rule number 1, never ask what's in the stew. Rule number 2, if the madame is smiling, someone else is about to be very, very sorry. Your first lessons come fast. How to carry 5 tankards in one hand, how to sweep a floor without waking the cat, how to smile politely while extracting a customer's elbow from the bread basket. Veterans are your guides through this obstacle course. Maud, the barmaid, demonstrates the art of the withering glare, a tool more effective than any mop or broom. Tiny, the bouncer, teaches you to spot troublemakers before they stand up, and how to gently encourage them to remember they have somewhere else to be. The second phase of training, Customer service, brothel style. You learn to read a room like a fortune teller. Is the merchant just chatty, or is he about to propose marriage? Again, is that noble a big tipper, or did he spend his last coin on that ridiculous feathered hat? The staff take bets on how many times you'll have to listen to the travelling bard's same old song before you crack. The answer is always more than you think. Then there's the fine art of evasion. This isn't just about dodging hands or insults, though you'll master that too. It's about knowing when to duck behind the bar, when to fetch the bouncer, and when to pretend you're suddenly very interested in the cheese inventory. It's about subtle code words. The mayor's here means clean up and hide the good cups, while house special tonight means someone's let the goat loose again. The greatest challenge, though, is keeping a straight face. The brothel attracts every eccentric for miles around. You'll meet a woman who insists on being serenaded by the cat, a man who recites limericks for his supper, and a trio of farmers who tip in apples, each convinced theirs are the finest in the land. You'll see a noble try to pay his tab with a rare and valuable pebble. You'll be offered everything from eggs to elaborate riddles in place of hard currency. Your mission: keep a deadpan expression, thank them for their generosity, and quietly hand the problem off to the madame, who has a system for trading poems for potatoes. Mistakes are inevitable and, honestly, part of the fun. You'll trip over a mop, spill ale on a regular, and accidentally insult the poet's hat. But every disaster is a rite of passage, and the staff will be there, snickering supportively and reminding you that everyone, even the madame, once had to clean up after the goat. Over time, you develop your own tricks. You practice neutral expressions in the mirror, learn to cough at the right moment to hide a giggle, and master the art of the non-committal nod. Veteran staff can listen to 3 confessions, 2 declarations of love, and a recitation of dubious poetry without flinching. The true professionals can even juggle bread rolls while breaking up a dice game, and at the end of every shift, you join the rest of the staff in a quiet celebration, swapping stories, sharing laughs, and, above all, congratulating each other on making it through another day without losing your composure. Because in the medieval brothel, a straight face isn't just a skill, it's your shield, your secret weapon, and, occasionally, your only defense against the truly bizarre. Once a week, the brothel attempts the impossible: actual laundry. Linens are boiled in cauldrons big enough to lose a toddler in, and soap is made from lard, ash, and hope. There's an endless debate over which stains are wine, which are blood, and which are, frankly, better left uninvestigated. By sunset, half the sheets are clean, half are drying on bushes, and someone's favourite stocking is inevitably lost to the wind. Laundry day starts with the best of intentions. The sun is shining. For once, the staff are rallying. And even the madame offers a rare word of encouragement. Buckets of linens are dragged out from under beds, scooped up from behind curtains, and retrieved from places you're fairly certain aren't technically part of the house. There's always a surprise. Last week's was a pair of breeches that may or may not have belonged to a visiting friar. No one asks questions. No one wants answers. The washing process is less soothing routine and more group endurance challenge. First, someone hauls water from the well, usually the newest staff member, who hasn't yet learned to feign an urgent appointment with the cheese merchant. Next comes the fire, built under the enormous cauldron. By midday, the entire house is blanketed in a warm, damp fog that smells faintly of last night's stew and this morning's regrets. Soap is precious and unpredictable. Each batch is an experiment: lard for softness, ash for grit, and a secret ingredient that the cook claims is pure magic. It bubbles, hisses, and sometimes grows a suspicious skin. The brave stir it with long sticks, hoping it's caustic enough to kill stains but not so strong it burns through the sheets. If it doubles as pest control, that's a bonus. Everyone develops mysterious burns on their hands, which the healer claims is a sign of a job well scrubbed. Then it's time for the real work. Linens are dunked, scrubbed, and whacked against rocks in the courtyard, to the rhythm of staff complaints and the occasional burst of laughter. The stains are a history lesson in themselves. Red wine from last week's party, gravy from the infamous midnight stew incident, and the rest. Well, it's better for everyone if you just keep scrubbing and don't look too closely. The debate rages on. Is that lipstick or blood, ale, or something much, much worse? Some questions are never meant to be answered. Once the linens have been through the wash, they're wrung out by hand, a task that requires both strength and faith as the occasional eel or chunk of bread emerges from the folds. Then comes the great hanging. Sheets, towels, and odd socks are flung over every available bush, fence, and low-hanging branch. The garden is transformed into a forest of billowing flags, each one fluttering defiantly in the wind, each one a testament to the house's ongoing war against grime. Disaster, naturally, is never far away. Rain clouds gather the instant the last sheet is hung. A passing dog makes off with a pillowcase. Someone's best stocking is carried off by a breeze, never to be seen again, until it turns up as a headband on the local cheese merchant's daughter. And always, there's that one stubborn stain that survives all efforts, earning a quiet spot of honor and a nickname. The survivor, Red October, and the Map of Wales are among the most famous. By sunset, the house is in chaos, sheets half dry, socks mismatched, and the staff dreaming of a world where everything smells like lavender and nothing ever stains. But as the sun dips below the rooftops, the house is filled with a sense of accomplishment. The beds are made, the floors swept, and for a fleeting moment, everything smells clean. Or at least, less like regret, and more like lard and hope. And if you wake up tomorrow with your pillowcase still on your pillow, consider yourself blessed. Because in the medieval brothel, laundry day is less about winning and more about surviving. And maybe, just maybe, finding both your socks. Not all hours in a brothel are created equal. The night shift is for insomniacs, moonlighters, and those who've seen things no one will ever believe. Business is slower but stranger. You might entertain a visiting poet, the town watch on break, or the same suspicious stranger who's been nursing the same drink since sundown. It's quieter, until it isn't. Then it's chaos in slippers. The first hour after midnight is a liminal time. The noise from the main room has dwindled to a hum, punctuated by the occasional snore, the creak of a chair, and the familiar plink of someone counting out coins in the dark. The candles burn low, casting weird shadows that turn broomsticks into ghosts, and the house cat into something from a folk tale. The staff move softly, voices dropping to whispers, lest they disturb the rare guest who has actually managed to fall asleep. Night shift regulars are a breed apart. There's the town poet, wrapped in a scarf, looking for someone, anyone, willing to listen to his new epic about doomed turnip farmers. There's a pair of watchmen, off-duty but still wearing half their uniforms, lingering over mugs of ale and swapping stories about which streets to avoid and whose chickens are the fastest. Sometimes you'll spot a wandering minstrel, a merchant unable to sleep, or a nervous traveller trying to work up the courage to ask for a room, a drink, or directions to anywhere else. The pace is deceptive. Tasks are smaller, wiping down counters, refilling candles, sweeping up the night's last crumbs, but vigilance never drops. The staff know that calm is always temporary. A quiet night can flip to pandemonium in a heartbeat. A door bangs open. Someone starts a heated argument with the bar stool, or the house pet decides to launch a midnight assault on someone's unattended supper. Slippers skid across the floor as everyone rushes to restore order without waking the madame, who has no patience for nonsense after 2 a.m. And so, as another night in the brothel flickers out, you find yourself, miraculously, still alive, only mildly itchy, and perhaps a bit wiser about the world's oldest profession. You've survived the endless noise, the questionable pottage, and at least 3 stains of mysterious origin. You've navigated everything from wild-eyed poets to furious poultry, mastered the art of sleeping with one eye open, and learned that in the business of pleasure, customer service really just means don't let the place burn down before breakfast. History, as always, has a strange way of making us grateful for what we have now. Tonight, as you settle into your clean sheets, with hot running water only a few feet away and no risk of being woken by a drunken lute solo, take a quiet moment to appreciate the comforts of modern life. Indoor plumbing, reliable laundry, roommates who, statistically, are less likely to be goats. You don't have to pay extra for privacy, dodge the local constable, or wonder if the cat in the corner is judging you. It is, but from a safe, historical distance. So maybe, just for tonight, whisper a silent thanks to everyone who came before us, to the staff who endured, the madams who ruled, and the generations who somehow found laughter, love, and even a little dignity amidst the madness of the Western brothel. Because history may be embarrassing, awkward, and sometimes absolutely baffling, but it's proof that people are tough, hopeful, and endlessly inventive, especially when survival means making the best of the worst night's sleep imaginable. Rest easy, friend. You've earned it. And remember, whatever life throws at you tomorrow, at least you don't have to do laundry for a brothel at dawn. Good night.